In this video, I'm going to review the RV-100 Inline Water Filter. I have one that I've been using for the last 6 months, and we're going to test the water quality of it after 6 months of use. I have 2 drinking water test kits. Let's go see what we can find out. This is the SP RV-100 by Spiropure. I purchased it on Amazon for $39.99. I will link that in the description. It is considered a multi-stage RV marine inline water filter. Now, I have used this for the last 6 months to water my garden. So I can honestly say that a lot of water has passed through this, so I think it will give us a good account of how it is performing at 6 months. I'll link the tests in the description as well. We're going to test our tap water, I'm going to test the new filter, and I'm going to test the filter after 6 months. Before we see what these water results are, let's take a look at a few of the key features and how to hook this thing up. You can see here on the end that you attach to the spigot has a fine mesh filter. You attach this little hose that's flexy, and then that can screw straight into the water source. Then you just hook your hose to the other end. And you can see it has clearly marked that it has the inlet, that means where the water comes into it from the water source, and then the outlet where it's going into your hose. I just wanted to show you here how I hook it up to my hose to do my watering. You can see a little easier, or if you had a hose running from your water source, you could still hook this to your hose somewhere in between the water source and your RV. Let's go look at the water test results, and then we'll go over the pros and cons. I made sure to run water through the new filter for several minutes to make sure that it had flushed out the filter and we'd get an accurate reading. I actually did the test 2 different times, and the first time I did everything all at once and tried to do a big comparison and video it. However, if the test strip sat for more than 60 seconds, some of the colors changed. So what I did was I individually tested each one of the samples, and I made a comparison chart, and here's what I found out. So to my surprise, according to these tests, my tap water is in pretty good shape. The majority of the contaminants were in the 0 range to normal range. So to summarize and not bore you, I'm just going to go over a few things. Carbonate went from 250 to 180. Calcium was in the high range of 125-ish. Both filters brought it down to 50. Total chlorines went from 1 to 2 range to a 0 to 1 range on both of the filters. pH on one test went from 8 points to 7.5, so a 0.5 decrease on both filters, and on another test it stayed the same. What I found odd was that the hardness made no change on either filter. Things that were also strange was alkalinity went from 50 to, on the 6 months filter, 120, and the new one to 100. So maybe if my tap water would have been worse, we would have seen a more dramatic change in the filters. However, with some of these inconsistencies, it makes me question how good these strips might be. So one thing I noticed with the new one and the one that was 6 months old was very little difference even after 6 months use. So one of the main things I learned from these tests is if they can be trusted, because apparently I might have trust issues. My tap water is not too bad, at least in the range that these tests test for. So now let's go over the pros and cons. So the pros: it is fairly inexpensive at $39.99. It's easy to use. It does not come with instructions in the box. The instructions are on the box, so do not throw the box away until you know what you're doing. It is compact and easy to travel with, and it's easy to disconnect. However, it does leak a tiny bit, so when you take it off, just take a hand towel, probably even something as small as a washcloth, and wrap around it just to make sure that it doesn't make a mess wherever you store it. But it really not much mess at all. For the cons, there is no real way to tell when it's time to replace it. So I think the little test strips might come in handy. Even though they may not be completely the most accurate thing, I think it could give you a pretty good gauge on when it's time to replace it. So to wrap up and give you my conclusions on the filter is, for what I first intended using it for was to water my garden. I am confident that it's removing the chlorine and the chloramine. And even though it doesn't say chloramine specific on these tests, it says chlorine and total chlorine. So it did make some improvement, even though my water started off pretty good at this time. The water quality does fluctuate. So I am happy with that. Now, we don't camp and we don't RV yet, but my thoughts on this are, if you were camping occasionally or even tent camping, this would be a good product because it's small and you could take it almost anywhere. And for short-term use, for a weekend or occasional, I would personally use it to filter my water, and I would feel pretty confident that it would be better than what I was getting at whatever the water source is, wherever I was at. However, if we were doing long-term camping, or you do a lot of camping in your RV, personally, I think this would be something good for the water that's coming through and you're showering in or cleaning with or washing up in. I think that would be an extra inexpensive way to filter the water coming into your RV. However, for my drinking water, I personally would probably use something else if this was something I was going to do long term. If you have any questions that I didn't cover in this video, please feel free to drop them in the comments. If you are interested in using this method for your garden, check out this video right here. And if you got any benefit out of this, I would ask you to please hit like and subscribe. That helps get this out to other people, and it also helps me. I thank you all so much. My name's Loanna, and this is Little Bit of Homestead.